From my earliest memories, I could clearly and painfully see how my parents handled my younger sister Lily. Living under the same roof, it was like inhabiting two separate planets. Ava is my name. Here is the narrative of how my own family deceived me and how I overcame it all. Lily arrived. Clearly, she would be the golden kid. She was born just 1 year after me. John and Eleanor Davis, our parents, gave her great attention. I stayed in the shadows. Every mark, every success, every little incident seemed to center Lily. I recall my 10th birthday clearly. Lily had arranged a grandiose celebration a few months previously, with bouncy castles, professional performers, and enough presents to fit a small vehicle. By contrast, my personal celebration included just a basic cake following dinner. "We're a bit tight on money this month, Ava," Mom had explained, but yet they bought Lily a new bike the next week. The difference transcended only tangible objects. Our parents hung on Lily's every word when she spoke at supper, pride glittering in their eyes. Dad would usually cut me off with a distracted, "That's nice, honey," while I tried to tell something about my day as he was reading through his phone. Their apathy was weighty, a continual reminder that I wasn't as unique as my sister and deserved their devotion. Still, the food situation was the most annoying aspect. Lily had a serious nut allergy, hence, my parents forbade nuts entirely in our house, instead of merely controlling her diet. Sandwiches made from peanut butter were my comfort food of choice. Not even at school, though, was I permitted to have them. "It's not fair," I recall saying one afternoon, while helping Evelyn, my grandma, prepare cookies. "Why must I consume everything Lily consumes? I have no allergies." My haven, the one person who really saw me, was Grandma Evelyn. Her cozy kitchen turned into my haven, smells of baking bread and simmering sauces filling everything. It was a space where I could talk without thinking about being discounted or dismissed. "Your parents are making a mistake, sweetheart," she would say, her intelligent eyes full of comprehension. "They are not seeing how it affects you. They believe they are doing what is best." I watched her weigh flour into a basin. The familiar actions calmed my racing thoughts. Mom bought Lily new ballet shoes yesterday since she mentioned she might want lessons. She said it was too expensive when I asked to join the science club. Grandma Evelyn's face turned steely. "I've tried talking to your mother about this, Ava. Just last week, I told her she needed to treat you both equally. But Eleanor," she sighed and shook her head. "She claims Lily is more talented, more outgoing, says you're too introverted. That's more difficult to connect with you." Although they stung, her comments were not shocking. Similar talks about Lily being the special one, the girl with all the potential, had been overheard by me before. Her parents were debating. I was just there in parallel. The silent one, the less gifted one, they had to accommodate, but never really saw. Lily's calendar was full of dance lessons, piano lessons, and art workshops. I spent my afternoons by myself in my room, watching life pass by through my window. Mom would say, "Lily has such natural talent," at supper. Dad would gleam with satisfaction while I pushed my food about my plate, invisible as always. Her dance instructor says she could become professional someday. One Saturday morning, Grandma Evelyn, bless her soul, arrived with sparkling eyes, announced, "Get your coat, Ava," she said. "I have registered you at the community center under the Young Scientist program." That initiative transformed my life. I found myself suddenly lost in a universe of experiments, calculations, and limitless opportunities. Dr. Chen, our teacher, observed no calm introvert. He sensed a voracious knowledge-seeking mentality. He high-fived me in front of the entire class when I properly completed a difficult algebraic issue in my first week. Though for me it meant the world, it was a modest gesture. By 14, I was not only doing exceptionally well in science and math, I was a podium runner arguing about social justice and climate warming. Actually, people paid attention when I spoke. The quiet girl who used to hide in her room vanished, replaced by someone assertive, with ideas and the bravery to voice them. Ava's presentation on renewable energy was really excellent. My debate coach informed my parents during a school conference. If she wants it, she has a real future in scientific research. Lily's face that day will always be with me. Her eyes contracted as her smile tightened. She wasn't used to taking front stage, so my increasing popularity at the school obviously disturbed her. Everyone could clearly see the modifications. Between courses, people began stopping by my locker, ready to discuss the most recent experiment or debate issue. I passed the student council election. All of a sudden, I had pals who appreciated my ideas and who asked me to weekend get-togethers and study sessions. I felt as though I fit anywhere for the first time in my life. Lily started her whisper campaign at that point. "Mom, Dad," I heard one evening, her voice full of false compassion. "Last week, it was Jake from her debate team. Ava was kissing Tommy Martinez behind the gym today. With hot rage, I ran into the kitchen. That's a lie! I have never—" "Lily wouldn't make this up," Mom said, cutting me off sharply. "She worries about you, Ava. These boys, these late-night study sessions. It's not appropriate," Dad said, his voice sharp. "No more going out after 6, and we'll be keeping an eye on your calls going forward. Ava, this is for your own benefit," I begged. "But what about my debate team meetings? My science club," Mom remarked, her tone softening somewhat. "You can participate in school activities, but afterward you come straight home. No exceptions." I glanced at Lily, who was hiding a smile behind her palm. We both understood she would have triumphed once more. Her falsehoods were stripping away my newly acquired independence. Lily's contempt for me became more evident as we grew older. She lacked sufficient control over my social life via our parents. She began focusing on my possessions and the few acquaintances I had kept in spite of restrictions. I discovered my science project soaked in water one morning. The meticulous calculations I had spent weeks on leaking into invisible stains were nowhere. Once more, my beloved birthday present from Grandma Evelyn, a sweeper, suddenly developed bleach marks. The worst, though, was what she did to Rachel's friendship. Since middle school, we had been close, bonded over our love of biology and awful reality TV shows. Among the few friends that stayed with me in spite of Lily's earlier rumors was Rachel. She did, nevertheless, have her breaking point. One day at my locker, Rachel asked, "How could you, Ava?" her tears shining in her eyes. "Lily told me everything, how you write about Matt in your diary, how you're intending to steal him from me." "Rachel, that's insane. I don't even have a diary, and I've never—" But Rachel was already leaving me alone in the corridor, the sting of betrayal fresh and searing. I rounded Lily in her room that evening, my voice trembling with hurt and rage. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Why do you have to trash everything good in my life?" "You're paranoid, Ava," she said coolly, her gaze icy and deliberate. "Maybe you would have more friends if you stopped fixating on me and fabricating stories." I wanted to yell. She somehow always managed to turn things around, giving me the impression of the crazy one. And our parents? Their complete faith in their golden kid unshakable, they never questioned her interpretation of events. Lily's 15th birthday followed. Mom was resolved to make it perfect and spent days getting ready for it. Relatives crowded every inch of our living room, and the house was festively pink and gold balloon decorated. Mom's masterwork was the cake, 3 layers of Lily's preferred vanilla buttercream. Lily blew out her candles to loud cheers as everyone gathered to sing "Happy Birthday," but something wasn't right. Lily's face transformed a few mouthfuls later. Her fingers slid to her throat, and her eyes went wide with panic. Mom identified the symptoms right away as an allergic response. Dad yelled, immediately racing for Lily's emergency pack. "The EpiPen!" Mom clutched Lily's hand as Dad injected her. Her breathing started to steady slowly. The party feeling vanished right away. While my parents hurried to find out what had happened, relatives crowded in worried groups. Mom kept asking, checking, and rereading the recipe to find out. "How did peanuts get in the cake?" "I took great care." Lily then raised a voice still raspy. "I watched Ava in the kitchen earlier, working on the cake." My heart thumping, I objected. "What? No. I was hardly near the cake." Lily persisted, nevertheless, her eyes shining with malevolent purpose. She said, "Check her purse." Softly, the blue one by the door. Before I could respond, Dad grabbed my purse, and there it was. A little jar of peanut butter, one I had never seen before, nestled exactly on top of my wallet. Dad's shout exploded across the living room, his face twisted with fury. "She could have died! What were you considering, Ava?" My mind whirling, I stood there shaking as my parents attacked me. Dad's hand's peanut butter jar could as well have been a burning pistol. I said, "I didn't do it," and my voice grew smaller every time. "Please, you really must believe me." Lily sat on the couch, an oxygen mask still close by her face, but I noticed a small turn in her lips. She was savoring this, seeing my planet fall apart around me. Our cousins moved uneasily and murmured among one another, as though I would try to poison her next. Aunt Sarah drew her daughter closer. Uncle Michael hardly would even meet my gaze. Grandma Evelyn was the only person moving toward me rather than away. "Now wait just a minute!" Grandma's voice sliced through the tumult. "Everyone needs to cool off and consider this rationally. Did anyone see Ava put it there? This needs to be properly investigated." Dad interjected, his voice tinged with contempt. "Everything is already clear. Ava, get to your room. We'll handle this later." The next several days were a misery. My parents behaved at home as though I were invisible. They would lock away all the food, leave the room when I walked in, and whisper behind closed doors. At the school, word went fast. People stepped away as though attempted murder was contagious. When I strolled down the hallways, 3 days of this suffering was intolerable, and I quit. Lily was by herself in her room reading through her phone. Closing the door behind me, I added, "You have to tell them the truth. This has gone far enough." Lily raised her head, and her smile sent shivers. Setting her phone down, "You know what's funny?" she asked. I had been waiting for the ideal moment for months. The birthday party was exactly timed. Something inside me cracked. Years of pent-up annoyance, resentment, and hurt burst out. I jumped at her, seizing her shoulders. We fell to the ground and knocked over the light by the bedside. The noise set our folks on sprints. They came upon us both shouting and battling on the ground. "She confessed!" I yelled as Dad hauled me off Lily. "She just told me she planned the entire thing. She planted the peanut butter in my purse." "Stop lying!" Lily screamed, crocodile tears already streaming. "See? She's crazy. She attacked me." "That's enough," Mom said with icy cold clarity. "Pack your stuff, Ava. We cannot have you in this house anymore." "What?" "No, please. You're dangerous," Dad said. "We'll call your grandmother. Either she picks you up by morning, or we're calling social services." I got down on my knees and begged them to hear and grasp. Still, their faces were like stones. Lily stood behind them, and through my tears, I could see her happy grin. Grandma Evelyn showed up early, her old station wagon sitting in our driveway. She approached my parents as I filled her car with quickly packed baggage, her voice quivering with rage. "What you're doing is disgusting," she informed them. "You are choosing to believe a lie over your own daughter. Someday you will see what you have done, and it will be too late." They gave no response. Lily stood between them, as they only watched Grandma drive me away from the only house I had ever known. Living with Grandma Evelyn was like at last being able to breathe after years of deprivation. She formally adopted me within a month, took care of all the paperwork for my Riverside high school move, and turned her sewing room into my bedroom. Nobody knew at Riverside about Lily's falsehoods or the birthday party event. I was simply the quiet girl and new girl with decent marks. Gradually, I began to make friends once more. Actual friends this time, free from Lily whispering poison in their ears. I poured myself with fresh enthusiasm into my studies. I thrived without Lily's drama and parental censure all around. Nearly flawless were my SAT results. As valedictorian, I spoke about resilience and the value of second opportunities. My parents omitted showing up for the graduation. More out of custom than hope, I had invited them, but I got no reply. Though less than I anticipated, it hurt. Grandma Evelyn's proud tears upon my diploma acceptance meant more than their absence. Although numerous prominent medical schools had accepted me, the tuition costs were intimidating. Grandma Evelyn grabbed a folder before I could even bring up college loans. She showed me a college fund for me, saying, "I've been saving for this since you were 12. I always knew you were meant for great things." Although demanding, those 4 years of dental school were worthwhile. I studied till my eyes burned, lived in a small apartment close to the university, and worked part-time at a cafe. Grandma Evelyn was my strength through it all. She listened to my enthusiastic phone calls regarding successful surgeries and never once questioned my chosen course. During this period, I never spoke with Lily or my parents. Updates on Lily's job at a nearby retail store, Mom's garden club accolades, and Dad's bowling league successes would occasionally show up on social media. I would swiftly scroll past them, not letting their life cross with mine. At last, following years of diligence, I held my dental license in hand. One of the most reputable private offices in the city, Brighton Dental Associates, made my first job offer. I put a picture of my license and diploma on Facebook with a basic caption, "Dr. Ava Harrison, DDS, dreams do come true." The answer came out as overwhelming. Old school classmates, distant cousins, even my third-grade teacher left congratulatory remarks. We're all so proud of you, Ava. Aunt Sarah, who had pushed her daughter away from me at that fatal birthday celebration, wrote. Uncle Michael posted, "Incredible achievement, kiddo." Examining those texts, I came to a very important realization. I had done more than only survive the treachery in my family. I had converted it into gasoline for my triumph. A calm Sunday afternoon found my phone ringing. The number was known, but in years I had not seen it flash across my screen. Dad. As I considered whether to respond, my hand trembled. "Hello?" I answered at last, my voice more steady than I had felt. "Ava, sweetie." Mom's voice was syrupy sweet, the tone she used to ask Lily's instructors for deadline extensions. "We're quite proud of you for announcing your intention to be a dentist." I stayed silent, waiting. She said, "We have been thinking about you," breaking through my quiet. "Your father and I, well, we would like you over for dinner, just to catch up, as a family." I ought not to have consented. Every instinct urged me to turn away, but curiosity, that tiny bit of me still yearning for their approval, won out. I heard myself asking, "What time?" I drove up to my childhood house in my new Mercedes the next evening, with the paint flaking slightly around the windows. The house appeared smaller than I had remembered. I had dressed deliberately, in a designer blouse, tailored jeans, and pearl earrings Grandma Evelyn had given me for graduation, armor in its own right. Before I could bang, Mom unlocked the door. She seemed to think better of it after moving as though to hug me. Come in. You look so professional." Dad stood in the main room uneasily. "Hey, kiddo." He'd aged more than I had anticipated, his hair now entirely gray, fresh wrinkles carved around his eyes. I remarked, pointing out the table was set for 3. "Is Lily joining us?" Mom answered fast. "Oh no, she's busy tonight. I made your favorite pot roast." Well, my fave used to be something else. Dinner was an odd dance of careful questioning and fake smiles. They inquired about my practice, about dentistry school, and about where I was living right now. I gave a courteous but concise response, without inviting further discussion. Dad remarked, pushing his potatoes about his dish, "So, dentistry has to be lucrative." And with that, there it was. I said neutrally, "I do all right." "She drives a Mercedes, John," Mom said, as if I wasn't seated right there. "And you pointed out an apartment, Ava?" "Yes. I bought a house downtown. Naturally, I have a mortgage." They stared at one another. Mom sighed as she placed down her fork, almost practiced. "Ava, we have been having some difficulties," she said. "Your father, well, the company downsized last month, and my arthritis is making it harder to maintain my full schedule at the salon." Taking a sip of water, I said, "That must be tough." Dad said, "We were wondering," clearing his voice. "That is, maybe you could, have you asked Lily for help?" I stopped. Mom's expression dropped. "Lily's struggling too. Retail pays little, and as it is, she is barely making ends meet." "Oh." I set my napkin on the table and got up. "Well, I'm sorry to hear about your situation, but I won't be able to help." As I headed to my car, I heard them calling after me. I turned around, not looking back. Mom sent a note to me during my clinic lunch break. "Ava, we need $20,000. I am with your father about to lose the house. You, our daughter, have a responsibility to support us." I fixed my phone, a weird peace falling over me at last. Then, an opportunity. "I'll give you the money," I texted back under one condition. "Admit publicly on social media that Lily's birthday cake never featured peanuts. Admit that Lily's falsehoods caused you to toss me from the house. Tell each person the truth." After what seemed like hours, the typing bubble showed and vanished multiple times until her response emerged. "We can't do that. It would sour the standing of our family in the neighborhood. Others would evaluate us." "Of course you understand." I laughed without feeling anything. "Then you know I won't be handing you any money." "Definitely you know." This time the response came right away. "After everything we have done for you." 2 hours later, during my afternoon break, Lily's name lit my screen. Something made me push the record button before answering. I shut off my phone and went back to work. "Hello, Lily," she shouted, her voice tinged with poison. "You heartless. Mom's sobbing because of you. You're playing games while they are ready to lose everything." "I'm asking for the truth," I said coolly, "not playing games. They need to own what they have done to me." "What have you done to me?" "Never going to happen, sis. You now understand why?" Her voice became sing-song as she said, "They've always loved me more, you know. It would hurt me, and they never do anything to hurt their precious Lily. Even now, Even after I mentioned the peanut butter, my pulse halted. What do you mean? Oh, you know? She laughed once more, the sound eerie. A few months after you departed, I told them I planted the jar in your purse. They hardly gave a damn either. Dad simply mentioned that you were gone, most likely for the best. That's just how much they would rather have me than you. Though my hands were shaking, I spoke steadily. You told them you acknowledged it? Of course I did. I had to inform someone as I was really pleased with my idea. And what would you suppose? They gave no thought. Each word was punctuated with hostile glee. They'll never admit it publicly because it would make me seem bad. You can thus ignore your small confession demand. After all these years, I finally had evidence. My sister's voice confessing to everything. The setup, the falsehoods, our parents' deliberate blindness. The line went dead, and I sat there staring at my phone, the recording carefully stored. I created the Facebook post that would transform everything with steady hands. No dramatics, no accusations, simply the truth, finally set free. Many of you remember the event at my sister's 15th birthday party, I wrote. The day my parents kicked me out of their house for apparently trying to injure my sister with peanuts. I have been burdened with that false charge for years. Today I'm telling my tale because the truth deserves to be heard, not out of retribution. I went over everything, the years of favoritism, Lily's growing lies, my parents' unquestioning loyalty to her, and how recently they had contacted me to want $20,000 rather than to apologize. And now, I added, I have evidence of what actually transpired that day. Attached is the audio file of Lily's voice, clear as day, bragging about packing the peanut butter in my purse, admitting that our parents knew the truth but chose to protect her anyway. The nasty laugh as she described their indifference to ruining my life. Aunt Sarah sent a long apology. Uncle Michael called me personally, his voice heavy with tears, as he expressed his remorse for believing the lies. Even my old friend Rachel reached out, now understanding why our friendship had truly ended. Within minutes the post erupted. Then arrived my family's furious notes. Take that down right away, Mom insisted by text. You're ruining this family, Dad shouted in a message. I'll sue you for recording me without permission. Lily trembled. All communications are being recorded and archived, I answered them all with. My attorney has duplicates of everything. Legal handling of any threats or harassment will be applied. Unless it comes through appropriate legal means, kindly do not get in touch with me once more. The texts stopped, the calls stopped, and the social media abuse stopped. They must have at last understood I was not that helpless teenage daughter anymore. Carrying a bottle of champagne, Grandma Evelyn came over the night following my article and said, "To the truth," pouring each of us a glass. "And to you, my brave girl." Fighting back tears, I told her, "I couldn't have done any of this without you," saying, "You were the only one who believed in me when everyone else turned away." She grabbed my hand and proudly said, "I never questioned you for a second, and look at you now, successful, robust, at last free of their lies. Do you ever suppose they will ever own what they did? Try atonement?" Grandma Evelyn shook her head. "Some individuals would sooner live with their lies than face the truth about themselves. But that is their load, not yours." She was right, of course. My parents and Lily picked their road long ago, just as I chose mine. They will have to live with the results of their decisions, just as I have constructed a life for me. The past does not haunt me anymore. It is a part of me, yes, but it does not define me. I am Ava, and these days I concentrate on my practice, my friends, and my relationship with Grandma Evelyn, the one true parent I have ever known. Story 2. In the lecture hall, the air smelled strongly of stale coffee and ancient books. Of course, I attended for the additional credit, though my GPA needed all the help it could get. A course on postmodern literature wasn't exactly a top concern for Wednesday night. I spotted him at that point. Dan, leaning forward, his brow wrinkled, and he questioned the lecturer with a query that sliced straight through the stifling academic fog. Intrigued, I watched as he broke out the case, his points clear and perceptive. Like some sort of cliché, after class we found ourselves at the same coffee shop. Whatever the reason, I found myself seated across from him, cappuccino in hand, totally enthralled. Perhaps it was fate, perhaps the few choices available on campus. We debated for hours about everything and nothing. I was immersed in symbols and metaphors, whereas he was a business student, all about reason and practicality. From a family where rules and customs dominated, he arrived. Mom and Dad, let us say they pushed me to challenge authority among other things. Though from separate worlds, It somehow clicked. 2 years passed in a frenzy of late-night study sessions, snatched kisses in the library, and weekend excursions throughout the city. We were intertwined, and moving in together made sense. It was pragmatic, sure, but more than that, it seemed like the logical next step. But his parents saw nothing like that. Dinner at the Millers was somewhat tense. Daniel's mother, Mrs. Miller, expressed her criticism the minute we entered. Living together prior to marriage? Daniel, you know how we feel about that. Bless his heart, Daniel, sought to reason with them. Mom, things have evolved over time. Nowadays, it's not a huge problem. Strict and relentless. Mr. Miller rapidly closed that down. In our house, it is. You are in sin. Their judgment was weighing down on me, their expectations choking me. Finally, my voice quivering slightly. We respect your ideas, I continued, but this is our decision, as grown-ups. Mrs. Miller groaned with obvious disappointment. Just not how we raised you, Daniel. He grabbed for my hand, his hold comforting. I love Sarah and she loves me. I hope you can help us to start our lives together. Though the evening turned out badly, Daniel and I were resolved. Eager to start our lives together, we settled in a nice apartment close to the university. But the criticism of his parents persisted, a shade over our enjoyment all the time. In our tiny flat, everything was lovely. Days dissolved into weeks, weeks into months, and every meal we ate in secret uttered strengthened our relationship. Still, the conflict with Daniel's parents persisted like a low hum in the background, always ready to throw off our peace. Mrs. Miller showed up at our home one evening with a just-made pie. Just thought I would come by and see how you two are doing, she remarked, staring critically at our place. I tried to ignore the way her nose twitched at the sight of our somewhat messy bookcase and pasted on a grin offering her tea. I said, "We're doing great, Mrs. Miller," hoping she wouldn't see the mound of papers on the dining table. Setting down on the couch, she murmured, "This is all temporary, right? You're going to get married shortly?" Daniel changed uneasily next to me. "We haven't decided that yet, Mom." Days grew into weeks, and the strain increased. Every phone contact and every visit was tinged with the same underlying message. "When are you planning to formally declare it?" Daniel eventually mentioned it one evening as we were preparing dinner. "Sarah," he said warily, "have you ever thought about, having a wedding?" Surrounded by cutting veggies, I looked up. "For us, are you putting forward?" He produced a shy smile for me. "Not quite. Although I mean to say, sure. I want to marry you eventually. Right now my parents have greater importance. Perhaps they would back off if we had a ceremony." My pulse dropped. This was hardly the romantic suggestion I had always envisioned. However, I understood. "So you're saying a wedding without the legal paperwork?" He gave a nodding. "Just a notion. We can have a great day inviting friends." We find some calm after my parents received their wedding. Though imperfect, it was a compromise. "All right," I answered softly, "but on one condition. We do it as we know. Not a large-scale religious wedding, only something modest and private." His cheeks turned white with relief. "Deal." The ceremony was quite lovely. Under a tree canopy, surrounded by our closest friends, we exchanged vows. For the first time in months, Daniel's parents also seemed truly delighted. Their smiles reached their eyes. Mrs. Miller even drew me aside to say she was sorry for their behavior, and that love was really what counted. It seemed like a new beginning, an opportunity to at last win them around. That hope was fleeting, though. It seems that the wedding had merely set off the floodgates. Their visits were more frequent, their comments increasingly invasive. They would visit without warning and provide unwelcome guidance on everything from our eating schedule to our cleaning. They seemed to have unfettered license to meddle in every sphere of our life. The pressure got more rather than less. The continual encroachment grew stifling. Every day appeared to bring fresh criticism, fresh advice, a fresh reminder that we were not meeting their standards. I discovered Mrs. Miller reorganizing our bookcases when I got home one afternoon. She said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, "Just thought I would help tidy up a bit." Already thin, my patience cracked at last. "This is our house, Mrs. Miller. We did not call for assistance." Daniel and I had a lengthy, trying chat that evening. Both of us felt imprisoned and were tired. My voice shaking. "This has to stop," I said. "I cannot live like this, continuously under judgment in my own house." He agreed, but the issue was how you advise your parents to back off without souring relations. We tried approaching them, telling them we needed space and that their continuous interference was causing us pain, but it went deathly silent. For them, It was ingratitude, a rejection of their affection and concern. With every day that passed, the situation grew more tense. One evening, while surfing online, I came onto a listing for a lovely house in a small town some hours' distance. It was ideal, a large refuge with a spreading garden far away from the stifling presence of Daniel's parents. Showing him the images, I remarked, "Look at this. What do you find?" At first he was reluctant, but the more we discussed, the more intriguing the concept grew. A fresh start, an opportunity to create our own life, free from criticism and meddling. We paid for the house with my grandmother's inheritance. Although we were leaving our former life behind, sadness was mixed with excitement from independence. We settled in our new house. The mornings were still, the evenings calm. We rediscovered the delight of just being together, free from continual parental criticism. But one afternoon our peace was broken when the doorbell rang. Mr. and Mrs. Miller were standing on our porch carrying bags. Mrs. Miller chipped, "We missed you, dear." Her smile strained. My chest dropped. From where had they found us? Their trip became an endless stay. As in our previous apartment, they settled in and made themselves at home. The known pattern of intrusion and judgment started to resurface. I listened one evening as they discussed permanently moving in with us and selling their own house. Panic shot across me. We had run away, and then found ourselves imprisoned once more. Desperate, I grabbed my trump card. I gently said over a tense meal that I owned the house, bought with my own money, and that they had no right to it. Then the bombshell. "And by the way," I said, matching their shocked look, "Daniel and I were never legally married. The event was only that which is a ceremony. None of us signed any official paperwork." The chamber descended into anarchy. Accusations flew, tears were shed, and the truth, at last free, hovered large in the air. To his credit, Daniel stood with me, verifying my words and bolstering our decisions. Furious and devastated, his parents bolted, leaving a path of resentment and accusation behind them. We then discovered that they had never really sold their residence. All of it had been a hoax, a last-ditch effort to control us into accepting them. Though it also brought clarity, the awareness ached. We had been naive, blinded by a need to satisfy and please, but no more. We needed distance, a fresh break from their negative impact. Though we knew it was essential, the decision was difficult. We wrote them a note outlining our desire for privacy so that we might heal and reconstruct our life. Their answer was obviously hostile, but we held ground. The next weeks were calm, full of fresh freedom and peace. Rediscovering the pleasure and intimacy lost in the tumult, we concentrated on one another. Daniel turned to me one evening as we sat on our porch, staring at the sky, his eyes full of thankfulness. "Thanks," he said, "for standing by me, for fighting for us." I grinned and tightened his hand. Never. We had emerged from a storm stronger, our bond created in the furnace of difficulty. We had discovered the hard way that, even with people closest to you, sometimes love calls for establishing boundaries. And at last we discovered the serenity and contentment we had been yearning in the tranquility of our new life.